All right, hello families. My name is Hakeem Intoshi Isler, and we are here at Elevo Dynamics for another edition of Inside Elevo, the martial arts edition. This is Sensei Bobby Albert, and he is going to be talking to us today about his experience and his growth here at Elevo Dynamics. He's been with us for a very long time. He's one of our senior instructors here, and he does magnificent things out in the world. So I thought it would be really great to talk to him today and kind of get his perspective on what it is that he does, why he trains here, things of that nature. So stay tuned. How did you find Elevo Dynamics, and what made you start training here?
Honestly, it was actually a really good friend of mine, a guy I consider my brother. Started training here before him, and he was like, "Hey, you got to come down and check this place out. It's really cool." I was like, "Well, what kind of martial art is it?" He was like, "It's Ninjutsu," and I was like, I kind of gave up the ninja dream when I was 8. So I was in my mid-30s, early 30s actually when I started training here. And he was like, "Oh man, you got to try it." So I was like, "Yeah, whatever," and I kind of put it off. And then I actually met you. He came with you to a hockey game.
Yeah,
we used to go to the Faithful Fire Ants games, and you were like, "Hey, come down and try it out." And so I said, "Okay, I'll come down and try it out." And day one, I remember the technique that we were working on. It was Yokto. I didn't know that then. I know that now. But there was a practical application. Immediately, I was like, "Hey, I can go out in the real world. There's a principle here that I'm learning that I can immediately apply in a real world self-defense situation." And it just made sense to me, because I was afraid. One of the things that you'd seen some other martial arts where you spend your first 6 months basically in a horse stance, just doing punches and blocks, and then learning these katas, but not really understanding why you're doing all that stuff. And I didn't want to do anything like that. I wasn't interested. But that practicality was like, in fact, I came back the next night and said, "Hey, I want to sign up."
Yeah,
it was like, "Sign me up, I'm in."
Yeah, that's awesome that you had that experience. I think sometimes people hear the word ninja and they think just what you said. They think, "Oh, well, these guys talking about being ninja and ninja aren't real." Yeah, I'm surprised at how many people don't recognize that ninjutsu is a real martial arts. I mean, my teacher and your teacher, Stephen K. Hayes, has done over 20 books, has been on countless shows, has gotten a Lifetime Achievement Award, created this beautiful system of Toshindo, which is a modern form of the ancient ninjutsu practice. And people still are like, "I've never heard of that." It's like, you've heard of a ninja, right? They're like, Teenage Turtles?
Yeah, they got
Ninja Turtles?
Yeah.
And then it doesn't help that we sometimes wear green, right? So, those guys are turtles, right?
Yeah.
So, no, but these guys had amazing, powerful lives, and so I believe that a lot of people can identify with what you're saying, where they have these moments where they don't believe that ninjutsu is a real thing, and then they see it and they experience it, and then they're like, "Whoa, this is really real. This is a real thing," and that's very important. So as an older guy, when you started, I mean, I say older, but you were in your 30s, right?
I think it was 33.
33.
Yeah.
So I only say that because we have a lot of people who come in and they're like 20, something, and they're like, "Oh, I want my kid to do this, but this isn't for adults." And it's like, but you were 33 when you started, and so what was that like?
Well, it reminds me of so probably when I was about 18, 19 years old, I was reading a Black Belt magazine that a friend had, and it was something, and it was an article on Chuck Norris, and he talked about how he didn't get into karate until he was like 18 years old, and how it's almost impossible to get a black belt if you haven't gotten into karate as a child. There was this big article, but it was from the 80s, I think the article was. I was reading it in the 90s. So the idea of really getting into a martial art at that time is like, well, I'm probably not going to go very far. I can't achieve that because I didn't start this when I was 8, 9 years old. But then when we started talking, I started watching, started training, started getting into it, started realizing, okay, that's just not true. I'm limiting myself based on some article I read from some guy who wrote about Chuck Norris in the 1980s, which has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with who I am and what I can and cannot accomplish. And so I made that commitment. So when we started, because I was one of your early adult students, and we started the Manjin program, the Black Belt Club, and I remember I was the first one there. I was like, hey, sign me up, I want to do this. And there was people that were training that were higher than me at the time that we still weren't ready to make the commitment, and I was like, hey, I can make this commitment. I know I can do this. Doesn't matter how old I am. Doesn't matter how long it had been since I've been doing PT regularly, or I got out of the Army, like a lot of people do. I stopped. I'm going to work out, but I'm going to take a week off, which week turns into a month turns into a year, turns into a decade. So being able to get back into that shape a little bit better, getting moving, and just making that commitment to do that.
Yeah.
Really interesting note. So I actually was going through my Facebook feed earlier today, and today is the 4th anniversary of me receiving my 2nd degree black belt here. It popped up in my memories. So, and of course, then last year, about this time, just right around this time last year, I received my 3rd degree. So being able to go, not just reach my black belt, which was the goal, I guess, at the time that I didn't think I'd be able to accomplish because of my age, but being able to go beyond that. And now, the limit of whatever I'm able to do before I'm afraid I'm going to run out of time before I can learn everything I want to learn about this martial art.
Yeah, my teacher said that, Stephen K. Hayes, he said that, I'll run out of lifetime before I get everything there is to get, and that's kind of exciting for him. And I think that can be pretty exciting. I like the fact that you said you recognized that you had placed a limiting belief on yourself. So a lot of people see or hear about ninjutsu and they don't realize that ninjutsu is a very deep martial art. It's not about memorizing moves. It's about you learn some techniques, but you're really learning the principle behind those techniques. And then it's even deeper because each principle actually relates to something that you go through as an individual in your just everyday life, in your actual internal psyche. And so there's this connection there. It's not just a move, it's a principle, and that principle relates to other aspects of your human nature, and like your emotional aspect and your mental aspect. So you were able to recognize that I had this limiting belief based on something I read, and then that something that you read wasn't really true for you. It was just something that you thought was true, but when you really reflected on it, it wasn't. And that was actually our Mindful Monday just recently. Who told you that? And so it was like, who told you that you couldn't do this? Who told you that you couldn't be this? And at some point, people hold on to these things without really reviewing them and saying, that's not my belief at all. I can do this. I can try this. And I like that. Now, you've suffered with bad knees, bad back, all types of things going on that you've hurt, that you've damaged, but you still find a way to train here. What would you say to people about that, where, we have people come in all the time, we already addressed the age situation, but, I got a hurt knee, or my lower back always acts up, what do you tell people?
We had a student back when we'd only been here a couple of years who had half an arm. I remember it very clearly. And his name was Asher, and he came in and he did not stop him. Didn't slow him down.
Yeah.
Not one bit. And he, even though he's gone on to other things and doing other things with his life, he's still that inspiration for me. It's like, if he can come in here and do this and face those things and try and do these things. So I have some injury in my knee, I have a little bit of pain. I can deal with it. The thing about this martial art is the principles don't require you to be in perfect shape. I mean, the better shape you're in, the better you're going to be at certain things. There's certain things that some people are better capable of doing. So I got to check my ego sometimes. We have some of these young people come in here who they're 18, 19, 20 years old, and they're rolling better than I've ever been able to roll.
Yeah.
They're doing these some techniques better than I've ever been able to do. And just kind of step back and okay, well, that's not my journey. This is my journey. And where am I at, and can I still do this martial art? And I found that there's no limit. There's always a way. There's always an adaptation. Yeah. So I may not be able to do it perfect. I may not look like a martial arts superstar from a movie when I do it, but I can still get that principle down, and that principle is what becomes important, and how I apply that martial art. There's that freedom that's in here. So I tore the meniscus in my knee, both knees, different times.
Yeah.
Recently had surgery on one of them, and I'm still in here. And I think it's being in here that's helped me recover as quickly as possible, as quickly as I can. I think that because the doc's like, hey, you're recovering like somebody half your age. It's like, well, I'm in here working out, I'm training, I'm doing stuff, I'm on my feet, I'm moving, I'm rolling with these kids who are half my age or younger, kids that are young enough to be my children. And I'm doing, our cardio kickboxing class, pressure point, and just doing all that stuff. And just staying as active as I can.
Two things that I want to unpack before we go. The first thing is that you talked about young man Asher with half an arm that came here and trained with us. And what was really amazing about him was that for him there was no limit, because he had already accepted that, look, I don't have half an arm, but that's all right. I'm just learning, I deal with it. But sometimes when people get used to having something and then they lose it, then in their mind they create a roadblock saying, well, I don't have that anymore, I can't do it. And Ninjutsu really focuses and highlights, oh, okay, you got your strengths, and then you got things that you don't necessarily have, you may think is a weakness, but you can strengthen those. And then also your strengths may not always be your strengths forever. So if those strengths go away, what happens then? So you're learning how to adapt to that, because that is real life, but that's also self-defense on multiple levels, mental and emotional and physical. Now, the last thing I want to ask you before we go is when you come in and you have, several kids, you have, a wife, beautiful wife, you got a house, you got a full-time job, and somehow you manage to come here and train like several times a week.
Not to mention I'm a full-time student.
And you're a full-time student. And people have half that. They have one child and they got one job and that's all they do, but yet they can't come to train at all because they just can't find time. But you got 5 different things that you do, but you always make time. What would you suggest to people at home in a few words?
I think it's a matter of finding what works, what's important to you. We'll always make time for those people that are important in our lives. We'll always make time for those things that are important in our lives. And so if I see the value in this, and there's value in this for me, this is my happy place. We talked about that before. My other job, I work EMS, and we see and we go through a lot of things. There's a lot of stress, and then there's a lot of issues that come with that. And this is where I come to the line. This is important to me, just being in here. You just find the time. You make the time when it's important.
When it's important.
And that's the thing. And find what works for you, what's important to you, what adds value to you as a person. Yeah. That you can then use to add value to society and the people around you. Yeah. Because it's not just about what I can do for me. Because once the wholer and the healer, the healthier I am emotionally, physically, spiritually, intellectually, the more I can give to other people. And that makes me even more emotionally whole and more wholesome as a person. Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome that you should say that, and I want to leave that there because that's a lot for people to digest. So you have Bobby Albert. He's one of our head instructors here at Elevo Dynamics. He's been training here for how long now? Almost 12 years.
12 years, wow. Yeah, 12 years is the 3rd degree here. One of the people you will get to train with if you come here and bring your family to train with us. And that's today's edition of Inside Elevo, the Martial Arts Edition. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time.